No Jack Farmer tonight. It's your Monday Night Raw Wrestling Inc. podcast. Jack Farmer out tonight, but we're still going to give you one hell of a show. I am Justin LaBar, coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, being joined, as always, on Monday nights with the man north of the border in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He is over 20-year WWE veteran referee. He's a future Hall of Famer. The man refereed an Undertaker WrestleMania match that automatically gets him to the front of the line at the supermarket, at Disney World, and anywhere else. He is the one. He is the only. He counts to three and makes it cool. Jimmy Korderas. Jimmy, how are you?
I don't know how to follow up that introduction, but I'm doing after that introduction. I feel great and almost like, wow, what do I say now?
You just give your opinions. That's all you have to do. And filling it and joining us tonight to round out our trios championship for the evening. You've seen him around. I hope you have. He was on this past Friday with Glenn. He was on many times this past fall, I believe, with Jack and myself. Enjoyed the time. Happy, good friend of the Wrestling Inc. podcast. Guest spotting here, Mr. Matt Kuhn. Matt, how are you tonight?
I'm great, and I just want to say how embarrassing it is to have my resume just ignored because it doesn't exist compared to Jimmy's. Jimmy's got this amazing resume, and I'm like, I've hosted 14 podcasts for 3 months, but I'm glad to be on. Love being on Wrestling Inc. Great to see you, Jimmy, and good to see you as always, Justin.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, Matt, you can always, I don't know what projects you have going. I know you've had a lot of podcasts. Feel free at any time, always throw some cheap plugs out. We like to do that here. We like to support our brands.
Absolutely.
Oh,
hey, so we're JMJ tonight.
JMJ.
Yeah.
JMJ. J.R. Smith, $1.99 super chat, kicking it off. Yes, it's kind of, see. I feel like we need to refund his money. Yeah, he paid $1.99 to get right ahead and do the Jack Farmer catchphrase. I feel like we have to refund. It's not up to me, J.R. Smith. I mean, it's not up to me. But if I had a button that hit refund, I'd refund you right now. I would. But we appreciate you, J.R. Smith. We appreciate all of you guys here in the chat. I know people are starting to come in, catch their seats, as we would say, finding their place. We're going to a lot to talk about tonight in this episode of Monday Night Raw, and an interesting time for WWE because we are now with Survivor Series in the rear view mirror. We're now on this lengthy bit of road until we have the next PLE, which of course is Royal Rumble. But there is plenty of top line worthy things going on in WWE that I don't think is just going to sit around and milk until Rumble. So really going to talk about tonight what happened and what path we are on to see some of these payoffs with some of these stories and dynamics taking place. Before we get into Raw, let's go ahead and do some news like we like to do, kicking it off. First, this is a bit of news. It is New Japan centric, but maybe it could involve WWE. And that is the fact that we now know one of the greatest and most decorated New Japan pro wrestlers ever, Okada. It looks like he is going to be a free agent very soon. It looks like that in 2024, he will be done with New Japan. And so that then, of course, brings natural speculation. Could he be coming to WWE? Could he come to AEW? A lot of, and right now with 2024 approaching, and this is already looking to be such a game-changing year with TV rights deals. We've already seen Punk return to WWE. Is MJF signed? Is he not signed to AEW? Matt, I'm going to start with you. Your reaction when you see the news that Okada is going to be a free agent soon. Do you think he re-signs with New Japan, or do you think he comes stateside?
From what we've been hearing, he's wanting to spread his wings. I mean, we don't know, I guess, where his relationship is with New Japan right now. But I will say, like a year, 2 years ago, definitely 4 years ago, the thought of Okada coming to a U.S. promotion and not just automatically being AEW is crazy. Because, you would back then, we would have been AEW. Right now, I mean, I look at the way CM Punk was presented. I look at the way Cody was presented. And I fear that Okada might feel that he would end up just another fish in the pond at AEW, as he was the last time he appeared there. I think WWE is not only a good fit, but I think he might lean in that direction.
Well, and to that point that Matt made, Jimmy, let me toss over to you. We've seen recently, Matt brings up some good names in terms of high-profile names and how they've been presented. But then let's look just more specifically to Japanese stars. It seems as of late, WWE has really tried to put their best foot forward with Nakamura, with Asuka, with Io Sky. I mean, whereas WWE unfortunately long had a had a reputation, a track record, if you will, of Japanese talent or gimmicks turning into comedy or just never, I mean, hell, the most successful Japanese was Yokozuna, and the guy wasn't Japanese. So
Gotcha.
I do wonder if if this is a little bit of Triple H and creative playing a little bit of a little bit of chess ahead of the game here to try to have the best PowerPoint presentation to make of here's why you should come to us.
Well, maybe it's to them, just like Matt mentioned spreading wings and stuff like that. If he's ready to come over to the U.S., why not try a place like WWE? Because WWE has this reputation of kind of, I don't want to say offending, but getting on the nerves of the diehard hardcore fans, which is what AEW caters to. So maybe this is an attempt by WWE to kind of add more variety to their presentation. They've already got guys who are characters and could, attract an audience. They've already got other guys who are comedy acts. They've got, different presentations. And maybe this is what they're thinking is, hey, we need to get those hardcore fans back on our side again. And someone like an Okada could be another, great tool to do that.
Yeah. Peter P in the chat saying, what about Tajiri? He was successful in WWE. Look, it depends on how you want to measure success. Tajiri, Funaki, Taka Michinoku, they might have had some success if you want to say they got to make some money for a little bit. They got consistent TV time with a catchphrase or with being goofy and facial expressions or whatever they did. But again, it always had a layer of goofiness that always kind of what it boiled back to with many many of those Japanese stars. And then, they tried to, when Matt Bloom was ready to come back stateside, they tried to, I thought had legs when I first saw the vignettes. But next thing you know, he's eventually dancing with Brodus Clay. So this could be a huge chapter in WWE's history, and specifically, again, WWE's history in presenting a Japanese star. So we will continue to watch. Make sure you stick to Wrestling Inc. for any updates that's going to come about that over the next few months. The other piece of news here, this was very, this is interesting given all, again, the moving parts. This is over on the AEW side of things. Dave Meltzer first reported it. Sean Ross Sapp at Fightful has also confirmed it. And that is AEW's VP of post-production, Kevin Sullivan, was let go today from AEW. Now, this is, of course, Kevin Sullivan. This is a production person that goes back to the days of WCW. Do not confuse him with the leader of the Dungeon of Doom. And VP of post-production, Jimmy. So he actually, as I understand it right, worked out of Nashville, where their production studios are that AEW uses. So, any editing of a show that's not live, Rampage or editing of, I believe, video vignettes, he's overseeing that. But he has been, the wording's let go. So I guess released but released, or if he's gone on his own accord. But any which way, he's out of there, which then is just another name on a list right now of changes to personnel. Most recently, prior to that, QT Marshall, who was Tony Khan's right-hand man, announced last week on social media his resignation and how the company is moving in a different direction than it was in 2019 when he started. What do you make of this change to post-production, a VP nonetheless?
Well, it's very interesting to me in the sense that, like you said, he is a behind-the-scenes guy that the fans don't really know about, and it's perception is reality kind of situation here, where they see someone, especially someone with the vice president title, leaving, whether it's of his own accord or whether he was let go. People are going to start asking questions. Why? I can't tell you why. I wish I could tell you why, but I don't know why, and it's got me interested only in the sense that I wonder what is going on over there, because like you said, we've seen some people leaving from AEW. We've also seen people come in. So what is causing certain individuals to go, especially from the production side? Because one of the issues I have with them is sometimes how they produce their product and try, as I like to say, how many times squeeze 20 pounds of potatoes in a 10-pound bag.
Matt, Kevin Sullivan, he was listed as a VP of post-production. Normally when you see, especially in wrestling, a VP being removed, maybe it's a budget cut thing. So, but AEW is not a publicly traded company like WWE is. That's actually one of the things that, AEW really doesn't have any accountability. They don't have to answer to anybody in terms of like what their numbers or metrics are. So this move for that reason, kind of makes me curious as to what would lead to this decision to get rid of somebody. Again, I can't imagine a budget thing, especially at the rate that they sign talent. So,
well, I'm going to just, do some pure conjecture here. The first point is, I think what Jimmy's alluding to is that you got now two kind of AEW OGs, original guys who, Tony Khan had very close, very important people who, as Tony Khan's circle is changing, might be changing. Also, at the same time, could be this conjecture, AEW has been maligned a lot for more than an average amount of technical flubs, visually. I mean, it happens a lot, I'm not saying he's held responsible. I don't know, but it's possible that it's related to that and them wanting to make sure they cut down on, I think there's some on Collision this past week, and there's been technical flubs, and it's been more than, I think, more than acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it says post-production, so I don't know how much involved with any show that's live he's doing, but I don't know. I'll be curious to see what I think inevitably as the wrestling business more things will leak out and float across.
Then I strike my second answer. I forgot that it was post-production.
But I don't know.
So
I don't. No. But I mean, I don't know, Matt. I don't know. I'm saying that's just what its title is, but I don't know how it all. So that doesn't disqualify. I mean, that doesn't disqualify what you said. I don't know. That's again. It's a very. It's worthwhile, even though we have no real information other than he's gone. It was worthwhile to still bring it up this soon, because I was just like, this is a peculiar kind of story, I think, to me, that to have this departure. But we'll see. Maybe by the time we get to Wednesday night, Jimmy, we will have more information to talk about as it relates to that. Okay, let's get into Monday Night Raw, coming to you from the capital of the state of New York, Albany, New York. A lot of history in Albany. A lot of history.
I no, not to interrupt you here. Just Albany, New York holds a special place for me because it was the first television tapings I ever got to work as a referee. Back in the day when they used to do Superstars and Wrestling Challenge back-to-back nights. So it was 3 weeks worth of Superstars in Albany, and then 3 weeks worth of Wrestling Challenge in
87.
Glens Falls in 87.
87.
I want to say June of 87. Have to check. Double check.
I got your book over here. I can just grab it. I'm sure you have it in the book.
It's probably in there somewhere.
Yeah. No, Albany. Hey, look, Albany, where Jimmy Korderas' career starts in the WWE. Albany, I believe, the site of Royal Rumble '92, arguably one of the greatest Rumbles ever. That story, I believe, that was in Albany, with the Flair win as he just come over. Albany, New York, also the site of the first ever Money in the Bank cash-in. I thought we might have had some synergy going with that here tonight. I started booking on Twitter and got myself all revved up. All right, let's get into Raw. We kick it off with Drew McIntyre, and it is official. He is a heel. He is just pissed off at everybody. He also then cuts in one part of his promo. He as he's going through, he's going through talking about all the faces and people he's got problems with. He doesn't name CM Punk by name, but then he talks about how, but then we have some people who they're here and then they leave, they go do whatever they want, and then they come back and they're forgiven. And Jimmy, I thought that was a little ironic, because as I sat there, I'm like, well, Drew, you were here, you left, you went and did whatever you wanted, now you're back.
Yeah, of course it's ironic, and that's what good heels do, is they play on the irony, because I'm sure there's people out there who are probably thinking the same thing. Hey, I'm sure he's referring to CM Punk, but you know what? I remember him doing kind of the same thing and leaving and blah, 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 and all that sort of. So that's the cool thing about it, is Drew is being a heel the way you're supposed to be a heel.
Yeah, so Matt, Drew continues this heel promo, and then finally the last name that he gets to that he wants to address is Sami Zayn, who immediately answers and comes out. They get in each other's face. They got words for each other, and where Drew wants a ref because he wants to he wants to kick Sami Zayn's ass. They have quite the match here, and the big story within the match is Sami at one point, they keep showing the replay, he comes down off of a second rope jump and looks like he's damaged his ankle and somehow, and Drew is just targeting that. Ultimately, Drew's going to end up getting the win as Sami just looks like a dog that just needs to be put down. The referee even has disgust in his face at Drew, who was showing no mercy. Matt, your reaction to this match and this heel Drew that is now in full force?
Drew's characterization, the work he's doing, It's some of the best work I think he's ever done. I think it's believable. Like Jimmy was saying, a heel, a bad guy. We've heard many times that they have to feel like they're justified. So it's got a little bit of that old Bret Hart kind of heel turn where he's just mad, and you can see he has every right to be mad. As far as this match, it set the tone for what was a very wrestling heavy Raw. There was a lot of wrestling, a 3-segment match to start it. Great match. Just another example of two guys in WWE who are now bigger stars than they were a year ago. And you could tell the crowd was into it. I was into it. I thought the segment was great. Sammy's the perfect foil. Drew's doing great work. The match was fantastic.
Both guys are. You're right. They really. It's great to see where they're at. And Jimmy, I gotta just give all the props to Sami Zayn for his selling. He really had me of like, do we need to stop this match? It is. This was a fantastic job. And again, I got to turn to you as a ref. I mentioned a minute ago. I think it was Zapata was the ref, and he just had this look of just. He didn't even want to lift Drew's hand up.
I get that, but at the same time, first of all, let me get to the positive. Like you said, Sammy sold like a champ. And again, watching it and watching the landing, even I went, hold on, let's see if he's working here. You try to, unfortunately, from an analytical standpoint, instead of thinking, I hope he's okay. I'm like, okay, is he just doing a hell of a job, or is he really like here? And he did a hell of a job. As for Rob selling, I get the referee, giving a little bit of expression and that sort of thing, but don't overdo it. I think Rod just overdid it a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You can have that kind of look like, come on, man. But at the same time, don't overdo it. And there was a point in there where instead of backing him off to check on Sammy to see if he wanted to give up and quit, it looked like he was mad at him for when he did after he did the chop block on the knee. You're not mad at him for doing. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to target an injured body part to make your opponent submit, right? So I think he overdid it a little bit, but at the same time, I get your point. And as you said, Matt, really good match, really good start to the night.
Well, there's definitely. I agree. I think there's definitely a fine line. If you're, obviously, as you could do a masterclass on Jimmy as a ref, you need to be, until the time calls for it, you need to be invisible. There's definitely a fine line between doing what the ref Zapata did tonight versus, and I hate it when I see it, unfortunately, Wednesdays when the ref is like reacting to a bump as if the bump happened to them. It just becomes, so there's definitely a fine line of being too noticeable and too distracting. And this, very, very wrestling heavy tonight, as Matt mentioned, and even just this match and this problem between the feud, or between the promo, the match, and then post-match later backstage, we see Medical checking on Sammy, and Drew continues to attack him and beat him down. This occupied about 45 to 50 minutes of the first hour. So they really, really invested tonight in this Drew McIntyre heel, new heel run, and his issues with Sami Zayn. Certainly not the last that we're going to see between these two. Moving on, we get Nia Jax. She's gonna have a match with Shayna Baszler. It is what it is. Nia's gonna end up getting the win. She's right now on the roll. She gets the win with her Annihilator. So kind of like a Yokozuna Banzai drop. But the real headline of this segment is that she had a little interaction backstage prior with Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch then comes out post match here, and Nia Jax, like the heel should, just kind of backs on out and says, "Not today." Matt, I can't. This is interesting because obviously anybody that's been watching for the last few years, they know there's history here between Nia Jax and Becky Lynch, which the two touched on in the promo backstage. What is wild? I could not believe this. Tell me if you knew this. Sean Ross Sapp tweeted something, and usually if Sean tweets something, I take it for pretty good credibility. But I deep dove just to make sure, and he's right. Becky Lynch and Nia Jax have never had a televised singles match with each other.
That's crazy. It's crazy if you think about it. You would think their paths would cross. I'm looking forward to the match. I'm sure it'll be great. But I think them just running into each other backstage and Becky going, "We have unfinished business." I think there's probably a better way to do that. I think you might be shortening the match a little bit. I thought the match was a very physical match, very physical, and it was good. But they were laying them in, and it was not a bad match by any means. I thought it was pretty good, and I thought it was very, very physical. I think they were hitting them.
Well, to the match, Jimmy. I did gloss over, but it was physical. I think the thing that still has me a little Nia Jax clearly the heel. Shayna Baszler, they rode on some fanfare momentum for a few weeks when the WWE Universe decided they wanted no more of Ronda Rousey, and so Shayna Baszler was the one to get rid of Ronda Rousey on TV. But I don't feel like the crowd is stuck with Shayna and is invested with anything real of her being a babyface. So this to me just felt like I'm watching just two women who I'm not cheering either one of them. So that's always an interesting dynamic. What did you feel about the match, and what's your excitement level of Nia Jax and Becky Lynch potentially finally having a singles feud after some storied history?
Well, on that, I'm looking forward to. But back to your original point here, I kind of feel like you did. I was again questioning who to cheer for here, and yes, it almost felt like Shayna Baszler was the de facto babyface in this thing, as opposed to the natural babyface. If you're getting my drift, it didn't feel natural, and I think a lot of the audience who tell you a lot of what you need to know probably didn't feel that, despite Shayna's credentials and real credentials, this match was set up to build up Nia Jax, which it did. It did do very well. And I will say this, I did get scared for Shayna on that German suplex. So that one spot where it looked like Nia, anyways, it looked scary. Let's put it that way. But I think the match accomplished its goal. It's making Nia look like a really scary individual in the women's division who can legitimately, relieve certain women of certain titles. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and Nia Becky, it's another example right now of WWE going deeper in their depth of women, of not just having to have, we're just going to have the women's feud over the whatever title there is. That we could have more issues, more stories that don't need titles involved, and you have a lot of story and history if you dig into the videos. I mean, really, if I'm recalling it right, then that famous, it was right around the build to Survivor Series of Nia, bloodying Becky's nose. That was pretty much the launching point of the Man moniker, of when Becky was just kind of launched into a new level for her career. So a lot to hone in on. We'll see where it goes. And again, we have a lot of time until the next PLE. So this is another match. There's several of them right now. There's another match. It's like, all right, do we go ahead and build a Raw around it? Since we have some time. Backstage, we get DIY along with Candice and Indy. They do a little mocking of Imperium, and then the Imperium guys walk by. So we're getting ready to have our 2 out of 3 falls match between DIY and Imperium. Of course, the pressure is on both Kaiser and Vinci to get this win, to get it done, as Indy called him. Papa Gunther wants to see these guys shape up. First fall goes to Imperium with Kaiser getting the roll up on Ciampa. Second fall goes to DIY with Gargano. He rolls up Vinci. Third fall and the win goes to DIY as Ciampa and Gargano both hit their meat in the middle. Double super kick on Kaiser. So Kaiser is responsible for the one victory fall that Imperium gets, Jimmy. But Kaiser's, and then Vinci and Kaiser both get pinned at one point. Kaiser, of course, his pinfall is the third and final fall it calls them. So like it's kind of like what I'm getting. It's kind of like a wash. Both men have complaints that they can have at each other. Mm-hmm. What did you make of this match? And I would just go ahead and say this: I don't like 2 out of 3 falls matches, but this one I don't like the gimmick of it. But this one I thought was pretty entertaining for all things considered.
It was entertaining because these two teams actually worked so well together, and there is a little bit of a story going on. And again, at least they didn't come out and blatantly say it. Can they coexist? But we have that story going on with Imperium right now. Can they coexist? And we already know that DIY, both Johnny and Tommaso, are a hell of a team. And like you said, the 2 out of 3 fall gimmick, some people don't like it. I'm okay with it, depending on how the 2 out of 3 falls work. And it worked perfect in a babyface capacity, where the babyfaces found themselves down 1-0, and then coming back and tying it up in the same fashion that the heels went ahead with that roll up. Normally, I'm usually complaining about the most dreaded move in wrestling right now is the roll up, it seems to be. But and them, attempting to hit their finish a few times, finally getting it and getting that win, and looking forward to seeing how this is going to affect Imperium going in the future.
Yeah, Michael Cole doing great stats, noting DIY having a lot of familiarity and success with 2 out of 3 falls match. 2 out of 3 falls match was how they won their first NXT tag titles, and 2 out of 3 falls match is how Johnny Gargano won his one and only NXT World Championship. So good work there by the great Michael Cole. Matt, lot here going on. DIY, they're back together after a lot of fans waiting for that. So this is a big win for them. This Imperium story is really intriguing. I mean, later on, actually, that we would see Gunther in the background, as they like to do in these backstage things. He was actually talking to Kaiser. What do you make of this? What's standing out for you in terms of what's hitting, what's missing?
I think what's missing is the DIY story. They've made this mistake many times bringing people up from NXT, assuming that whatever worked for them down there is going to work for them up there. And the DIY story took place over a long period of time. There's nothing wrong with telling that story a bit more to get the fans more invested. They're not, we've seen, like, American Alpha is a great example. They were awesome in NXT. They come up, they didn't tell their story. They just said, here they are. And it didn't really hit. DIY are great wrestlers. This was a great match, but I think they are compelling characters. And I don't think we have seen that be told. The stakes, not that many stakes. The Gunther stake is who's Gunther going to be most mad at, makes it a little less compelling for me. But a great 2 out of 3 falls match. This first hour and 40 minutes of Raw was almost all wrestling. It was very interesting to see.
Matt, we don't get to talk to you on the regular about Imperium, so clearly they're teasing. They're building at some point that one of the two henchmen, Kaiser, eventually one of them is going to be kicked out of the group. If not both, but one of them is going to get out first. You have an opinion? I mean, Kaiser's shown more, I think, marketability, and he stands out more with the walk and the facial expressions. But I don't know. What say you if you're going to? Gunther's obviously working on becoming a made man and an established main eventer soon enough. But what would you do with Vinci and Kaiser? What are you going to do if you had the call of who breaks off? And if they break off, do they automatically become a babyface?
I would keep them as long as possible. Keep this going until it reaches a fever pitch among the fans. For Kaiser. Kaiser's the dude. Kaiser's the guy. He's great. Maybe even like SummerSlam. Keep it going. Keep Gunther getting more and more abusive and them getting more and more tempted. And don't be so quick for it to happen until the fans are firmly behind somebody. We've seen that when it happens to a peak, and it's perfect to happen. And yeah, whoever turns is a baby face against Gunther instantly.
I believe Kaiser is German, and they are going to be in Berlin for a big PLE next summer. So as you get me thinking about the summer, that would be the place to.
Yeah, but Kaiser's the dude, man. He's great. Like he's got the character stuff down. He's great in the ring, and there's no reason to think he can't have a very successful singles career.
Or maybe I'm sitting here assuming that they have to split and one of them breaks off. Maybe they both break away. They both turn their backs on Gunther, and they just become a babyface tag team just to add to this tag team division that's starting to again add some depth of its own.
That's an interesting take. Yeah,
it's less effective to me as a turn if you have both.
Yeah. Well, I think if you did, I usually I would agree with that. I think if you did it, it'd be a situation of like Gunther's looking at them for help to keep his historic IC title run going, and they're like, nope, this is all you. And then that would be a way to baby them both at that moment. Backstage, we got to work on the security at the Judgment Day clubhouse. R-Truth has infiltrated it again. He's got an old black and white TV that he's trying to set up, and as Cole said, where's the rabbit ears? And a little more comedy here as we got Truth back on TV. The biggest takeaway, though, aside from the comedy chops that are the legendary R-Truth, is Damian Priest is talking to JD McDonough and to Dirty Dom, and he informs all of us that Finn and Rhea are both not there tonight. Especially when he says Rhea's not there, you can hear the live crowd in Albany not happy with that. So they don't get CM Punk tonight. They don't get mommy Rhea Ripley tonight. And I continue to say, she's booked in a heel team and she's on the heel side of the fence, the yard. But Jimmy, Rhea Ripley she's on a level. I'm not gonna say on her own, but I'm not gonna ignore Roman Reigns and a few other people,
Right.
but she's at a level right now that is just insane, especially by comparison in the women's division in history.
No, absolutely. She is hitting all the, like you talk about ticking all the boxes. She's ticking all the boxes right now. And she's doing what is the most important thing we've been talking about, getting the audience invested in her, regardless of the fact that she's a heel. They still want to see her. They want her to appear. They want to, whether it is to cheer her, to boo her, whatever the case may be, they still want to see her and they are invested in her. Not as the title is a nice little added bonus, let's put it that way. But like I said, I don't want to sound repetitive. They are so into her right now that she's on another level from some of the other ladies on the roster. Let's put it like that way.
We'll obviously talk more about Judgment Day, Matt. I just want to. It's crazy. Like, Rhea's not even on this episode, and we're dedicating a little pocket of this podcast to Rhea. Matt, I think Rhea. First off, I don't think there's anybody right now, and it's even positioned right now in WWE to be believable to even beat her and dethrone her. I look at her though. You've been a fan for many decades. I look at her as I go back to the early 2000s. I go back to like 2001 when China had broken away from DX and Corporation, and China had really seeped into the mainstream. Now, Rhea really hasn't done that. I mean, China was on the cover of Playboy, for Christ's sake. So China seeped in the mainstream. They were doing more feminine stuff with her rather than her just being the big, bodyguard. And it all happened really fast. And then she was gone from WWE not too long. Obviously, a lot of controversy and different things that happened behind the scenes and her contract negotiations, whatever. I think had China stayed, and I'm talking in the wrestling arena, had China stayed for those next few years in the early 2000s, that we would have kind of seen what we're getting right now with Rhea, where just a woman is not because of sex appeal necessarily, not because of pillow fights or TNA, but a woman because of just physical dominance and also in-ring performance. I feel like there's like a comparison. That's what I'm getting at. I feel like what we're seeing with Rhea is what I think China would have continued to do inside the wrestling arena. As a longtime wrestling fan, what would you say to that?
There's a certain presence about Rhea that's unique. There's a presentation about her that's unique, and it's very appealing and very credible and very genuine. So, like Jimmy's saying, she connects. They have that in their pocket whenever they want it. Whenever they want to go to Rhea, the big babyface star, whatever fights back against the Judgment Day, they've got that. And to me, the parallel to her is Bianca Belair, where you have these two great, just young, really just great and possibly transcendent wrestlers. Both of them can break into the mainstream, can be the standard bearers for the entire company. You got two of them, and they're both very different, and they're both unique, and they're both extremely marketable.
Yeah. Very good call on Bianca. Yeah. So very. So again, Rhea not there tonight, but still getting reactions from the crowd. Next match we get, sticking with the women's division, we get a tag team match. We get Kaden Carter and Katana Chance up against Tegan Nox and Natalya. Chelsea Green and Piper Niven on commentary, just annoying Wayne and Mikey Boy as they referred to their commentary colleagues for the match. This one, especially the finish, but there was some spots leading into it. Some very creative offense from Carter and Chance. Their finishing move, they call it the keg stand. Just go online and check it out. A very, very creative tag team move here to do. They're going to get the win over Tegan Nox and over Natalya. Jimmy, what'd you make of this match? Chance and Carter, obviously the two out of this whole segment that we have the least familiarity with on the main roster. What'd you make of that? And we never really get to talk too much about Chelsea and Piper as tag team champs and their role. So where are you at with the women's tag team title picture?
It's starting to pick up. Let's put it that way. It's definitely, in my opinion, not there yet. But I like the fact that they did have someone like a Natty in there. And yes, and Tegan Nox to a certain degree. But Chance and Carter looked really good together. And a lot of that had to do with Natty. Natty made them look great. It helped them elevate them. So we'll see where this goes. There's a little more interest in the tag team division in the women's side right now. And the champs were annoying, like they're supposed to be, I guess, on commentary. We'll see where this leads. They haven't got me totally drawn in yet, but they're building that interest. Let's put it that way.
Matt, are you interested in the women's tag team title picture in WWE right now?
Not really. However, I will say, I love Chelsea. Chelsea is amazing, and this tag division has always been kind of, generally if you're in it, it's dead, But unless you can make the most of it, like Chelsea's doing, she's making the most of every opportunity. Katana Chance and Hayden, they've been together a long time. They've been doing this a long time, for a young babyface tag team. I don't think they really connect with the audience. Usually you would see someone in this role being cheered on and people going, wow, look at these young kids, or wow, they're doing great stuff. But it just seems like there's some not clicking about them in the ring to me. I can't tell you what it is because I'm not a wrestler, but to me, it misses me. And of course, Natty is amazing, obviously.
Yeah, let's, Jimmy, as the resident Canadian, you can talk about your fellow Canadian. Let's talk about Natty for a minute. I mean, one of the longest tenured talents there, male or female, obviously comes from a royal wrestling family. I still feel like Natty, it's crazy as I say all those accolades, I still feel like she's underrated and underappreciated. I don't know. Do you ever feel that?
I don't,
maybe not underappreciated. I just feel like she still has not ever got like that run that I really think that she should have.
You do have a point there. Maybe that is true, but at the same time, I don't think she's underappreciated by her employers. Let's put it that way. They know what they have, the value that Natty brings to the women's division, not only for what we see on television, for what goes on behind the scenes as well. She is someone to go to because, like you said, she comes from wrestling royalty. Her DNA is just like incredible between her father and her uncle and all that. Anyways, I can see your point. It almost feels like there should have been that one run for her that was like to really solidify that career. Is it too late now? Some people may say so, but at the same time, she's there, and every time she's in the ring with someone, she helps elevate them. And I think that's her, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, that's where she is right now as far as her position on the roster.
Yeah, I mean, she's been a manager / wrestler to her husband and her cousin. She's gone through the Divas era and the Divas title. Then, okay, we're going to do women's wrestling. She's going to be there as a vet, but we're not really going to push her anywhere else. Oh, we're going to get into reality shows with E. Well, we're going to put Natty on there. We're going to have Natty partying and getting silly, and we're going to build some reality show stuff around her. She's just, we're going to have her do a farting gimmick where she can't stop farting. And that's a thing that happened. I know we all try to forget that. I don't know. I look at Natty. I just feel like there's still a run that I feel like she hasn't had that she should have.
No, completely understood. But she's also showed that she could do anything you ask her to do.
Yeah.
And that's, and knowing Natty the way I do, she's happy to do it. Obviously, she probably would have loved that run that you're talking about. But at the same time, she's doing it because she loves it.
I mean, it's not too late. She's still in great shape. She's still,
So
if they wanted to do it, they could do it. She's a good soldier. Absolutely good soldier. All right. Next up here, one of the really interesting stories going on here on the Red brand, and that is with Cody Rhodes. He comes out, and of course, they show us the recap of the week prior of Shinsuke Nakamura, who had been having all these kind of like cryptic messages for weeks of who is he targeting, who's his next opponent. Well, we'd find out last week that it's Cody as he came out and spit the poisonous mist into Cody's face. So Cody cuts a promo, puts over that poisonous mist, puts over being afraid of it and the Great Muta when he was a boy, and how now getting the mist from Shinsuke, it's justified his childhood fears. And then we get an answer from Shinsuke Nakamura in another one of these, I'm going to say it, excellently produced WWE pre-tape promos and vignettes. It's Shinsuke with the subtitles cutting a promo, but they're also interlacing in some video to echo what he's saying. And the whole gist is he's saying how he and Cody have traveled the same path. They've had the same humiliation. They climbed the mountain, win a Royal Rumble, go to a title match, world title match at WrestleMania, come up short. And hearing Cody talk about finishing his story, it's inspired Shinsuke. It's inspired him. He's going to step into Cody's shoes, and he's just going to finish Cody's story for him. He's going to take that burden off of Cody's shoulders. And then we will later, then, of course, find out that they're going to make the match official for next week, that it's Cody Rhodes versus Shinsuke Nakamura. Matt, I thought, what a great explanation as to why Shinsuke Nakamura has targeted Cody Rhodes. I thought the words that in Nakamura's promo, and then they're showing the clips of Nakamura winning the Rumble, Cody winning the Rumble, et cetera, et cetera. I thought this really hit and tied this thing together. What say you?
You know, Nakamura has had a career renaissance with these promos and his feud with Seth Rollins. And Cody is just, what do you do with Cody right now? You know, that's kind of always the question. What are we going to do with Cody this year? And I'm telling you, this guy has so much momentum. And the fact that he's kept the momentum up this long, and to watch him go from, okay, this big AEW star's here, to, oh, he's a great star, to now beloved by the WWE audience has been something to watch. They love Cody Rhodes. And so it's a great feud. Nakamura's great. Everything worked for me. And Cody is still has momentum.
Jimmy, your thoughts on this segment as a whole?
No, overall, I thought it was great. Like I talked about all the time, drawing me in. They drew me in, especially with the explanation that Shinsuke Nakamura and the parallels between their journeys, their stories. And everybody talks about Cody needs to finish his story. And Nakamura is saying that their stories are so similar. I love the connection there. And obviously you have to bridge the gap between now and whenever that story for Cody is, finished being told, until the next story for Cody, which a lot of people are predicting is going to be WrestleMania. There's still a lot of time there, but man, imagine they're having a match on TV next week, but imagine what they could do leading up to the next pay-per-view or PLE.
So to that point, Jimmy, and I'll ask both of you this. Both of you can answer this. So last week, Cody had declared, he's the first one that he's going to enter, which is always funny to me. I'm declaring him entering the Rumble. Well, everybody wants to be in the Rumble. It's your ticket to WrestleMania. But anyways, that was one trope that I was hoping Hunter would get rid of, but I guess we're going to stick with that. We're going to stick with that and pointing to the sign. It's marketing. So we know Cody's in the Rumble, obviously. And we have a long way to go, relatively speaking, until the Rumble. So we're getting this first match between he and Nakamura next week. Would you guys agree that there's enough time, and to not just to try to keep some momentum for Nakamura? Nakamura should probably win this first match, right? By hook or by crook, he should probably win this first match, and we can have, a rematch or some series of matches beyond, and still have time to get to Rumble. But Matt, I think if we go right out the gate next week, and Cody beats Shinsuke Nakamura, well, case closed. What else? This is all that kind of kills it, right?
Yeah, and I think it's curious, that they have a match next week. So I would guess that they're not going to have a match in full next week. Something will happen that will prevent them from having to have the full match, so that they can stretch this thing out a little bit further. The story will be furthered next week, but for them to have like a big match with a definitive winner seems premature and very un-WWE-like at this juncture when their storylines take so long to develop.
Jimmy, what do you think happens next week?
Well, you could, like Matt said, you could end the match quickly in a non-finish type capacity, or not have them. You announce the match, and yes, it would piss a lot of people off if you don't actually have the match. But something happens prior to the match that doesn't allow this match to take place. Whether it's something happens, there's an interaction backstage, some miscommunication, you know what I mean? Maybe Shinsuke sprays Cody before the match starts backstage somewhere, and now Cody can't see, so they can't have the match. Something along those lines.
Let me throw this again, just throwing things out here as we're speculating about how this is going to play out in timeline. And Cody mentioning the Great Muta. Great Muta went into the Hall of Fame, so he has a working relationship with WWE. It wouldn't be impossible to think that the Great Muta makes an appearance through any of this. I don't know. Just that just the fact they mentioned Muta, it made sense that he mentioned Muta. Obviously, that times out when Cody's a kid. That's who he's watching and seeing through the mist and everything. I don't know. I that was something I thought of, and I jotted down of like, hey, Muta, he's a WWE Hall of Famer now. He could maybe get involved.
No reason not to.
Yeah, sometimes why mention someone if they're not going to appear?
Exactly. So we'll looking forward to that next week on Monday Night Raw to see what exactly we get out of this advertised match between those two. All right, so we get JD McDonough and Dirty Dom up against the Creed Brothers. Now, the Creed Brothers are the #1 contenders for Priest and Finn's tag titles. We don't yet know when that match is going to happen, but we know they're the next up. So JD McDonough and Dom have been tasked with go out there and neutralize these guys. Take them out of the picture. Creed Brothers kind of a little bit heightened status, but a little bit somewhat like what Matt was saying earlier about Chance and Carter. It's like, there's some cool things to see that they do spot wise, but the crowd's still not fully, I don't feel like, on board. I feel like commentary is working their ass off talking about these guys' pedigree, and they qualified for Olympic trials, but they decided to go the route of WWE instead. All great things. We saw more power display. I got to give a shout out. I think it's Julius. He had that sequence here where he's doing German suplex and then he kips up. German suplex, kips up. He did it, several times in a row, which is just looks like something that would just make any normal person just throw up if you were tasked to do this. Finally, though, with the Brutus bomb as Brutus comes flying off the top rope, they get the win. They pin JD McDonough. JD McDonough's the fall guy for Judgment Day right now. So a win, as it should be, for the Creed Brothers. Matt, I'll go back to you again. Is it like Carter and Chance? Is it the same kind of thing where it's like the crowd still just isn't hitched to their wagon, or is there more story that needs to be told with them?
I think Carter and Chance have been up for a bit and have yet to catch fire, and the people are starting to enjoy the Creeds. And I think not only that, they're getting different kind of rubs on screen from either the New Day, or my favorite segment of the whole show is when Damian Priest asked them why they lost the match, and they go, well, they're legit. And Priest goes, okay. Like, how many times have you seen that? Like, they beat us because they're better than us, and you better watch out. Like, that's a great rub to give them, but also was the most real, credible thing ever, because then Priest just goes, yeah, okay, I get it, cool. Like, that was a great moment.
Yeah, great call.
And Julius Creed is the breakout star. Like, that dude is going to be something. He's going to be somebody for sure.
If I could just jump in here, the point that Matt made, yes, those guys are great in the ring, but like you said, that comment made afterwards by Dom, if I'm not mistaken, saying you guys better watch out because these guys are legit. That did more to elevate that tag team than the actual match itself. So as good as the match was, and as good as these guys are in the ring, sometimes you have to, like I always say, talk people in front of the TV and into the seats. And that's what that one little line did. It made people go, oh, wow. Even the guy we can't stand is saying, these guys are legit.
Yeah, no, great call, Matt. Absolutely right. That is something unique that you don't often get, especially from the guy who gets some of the biggest heel reactions. That is Dirty Dom. So yeah, the Creed Brothers. And I would agree, Matt. If I'm looking at the two of them, Julius is the one who exudes a little bit more of that it factor. But we'll keep seeing. They certainly are doing. They're trying. They're getting some wins. Again, commentary is really trying to sell them on TV. I always try to remind myself in a situation like this. There's 10,000 people in the arena. There's millions at home. If the millions at home each week keep hearing the commentary, it will eventually translate into, hopefully, as they start going to the buildings when WWE comes to their town, that they start reacting a little bit more and start remembering what commentary said about, these guys are Olympic athletes and they're here, and these guys so hopefully as time goes on and consistency, if they keep being consistently booked and featured on TV, they'll get some more reactions as they come out, and by the time they have this match against Priest and Finn, whenever that's going to be, there's a thirst to see them disrupt the Judgment Day. All right, it's time for what's now going to be our annual CM Punk segment, and he wasn't even there tonight. Adam Pearce backstage. Seth's getting ready. Seth's got a big title match coming up, but Adam Pearce picked this time. He's got to tell Seth right now. Seth, I know you're getting ready. I know you're trying to get focused on main event Jey Uso, but I got to tell you, I invited CM Punk here next week. He's the hottest free agent. I'm going to sign him. To which Rollins is like, whatever. It's on you. He's going to come here. He's going to screw things up, and it's going to be all on you. CM Punk, of course, they're labeled as a free agent. He's going to go to SmackDown this Friday, and then he will be on Raw next Monday. Matt, I haven't got to talk to you at all about CM Punk. He's going to be on Raw next Monday in Cleveland, which, by the way, for you historians, again, as we're in a little bit of history tonight, Cleveland was the building, was the town where CM Punk had his last throwdown in person backstage with Vince and Triple H and management, and then he left the building, and that was him effectively done with the company in January of 2014, the night after he had the Rumble here in Pittsburgh. So a lot of fun little synergy. I'm sure he will bring it up next Monday. Matt, your thoughts on CM Punk and this whole situation right now?
Well, you know, Punk, his relationship at AEW definitely affected my podcast with Dax Harwood, and in a negative way. You know, so Punk has been an impactful person in my life in a secondary way.
Can I stop?
Sure.
Can you offer any more clarity to that?
Sure. Like,
for people that don't know,
the Dax podcast, Dax Harwood and I had a podcast, and we talked about Punk. Now, Dax and I we're kind of old school. Like, we're just like, well, we can talk about anything. And apparently, you know, us talking about Punk, especially towards the end, where we talked about how great it would be to have CMFTR versus the Elite at Wembley. It raised a lot of flags with a lot of fans and stuff, and it was a very negative thing. The reaction to us talking about Punk so much was very negative, and it was one of the things that led to us not being able to have our podcast anymore, was just the controversy that constantly swirled it because we talked about Punk a lot.
But when you talk about Punk, I mean, like, Dax and Punk are on the same side of things. Like, they're good.
It's weird. Right. It's weird. It's it was just like, you know, Dax works there, you know, so when you talk about stuff at work, people don't like it sometimes, you know.
Interesting. All right, yeah. I'm sorry I cut you off to ask you that follow-up.
Sure,
but anything more you want to talk about with Punk here as it relates now that he's back in WWE?
But Dax and I made the decision to end the show because we just didn't want all the negativity involved, and it was killing it, by the way.
Yeah.
But Punk was definitely a factor. Punk, wow, what a trip it's been, you know, to go from being on a show where we're like, hey, we really want to see Punk back in AEW, to here where he's in WWE. I hope it works out for everybody. I'm a fan. I like to see him treated more fairly by wrestling media, but at the same time, I think this is the perfect situation for him, and what a pickup by WWE.
Yeah. Jimmy, obviously, we did get to talk about Punk last week. We saw his first promo last week on Raw. Cool that they're giving him the rub over to SmackDown, kind of doing the same thing that Orton did, letting the two brands make their best pitch. What do you expect next Monday? We saw Randy go to SmackDown because he wants the bloodline. He wants bloodline. He wants Roman Reigns. Do we get Punk on Raw next week saying, I want Seth Rollins? What are you thinking here? What's going on?
I don't know if he goes on next Monday and says, I want Seth Rollins, because obviously there's, hints dropped by Drew McIntyre as well. So you've got two built-in stories right there. Yeah. And you talk about someone who moves the needle and could possibly do. There's a guy who can move the needle with both guys. Like Matt said earlier, Drew's doing some of the best work of his career right now. Imagine him and someone who's got the attention that CM Punk has right now. And then Seth and CM Punk eventually. It feels like the logical move. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see what he does this Friday, then we'll tune in next Monday. Seth Rollins had a match tonight, and even during his match tonight, there were CM Punk chants. So it's not lost on the audience that whether they're going to get it now, whether they're going to get it at Mania, they want it, or at least they want to see the interactions on the microphone. We'll see what transpires after that.
It's crazy when you think they just kind of spoon-fed the idea of it's going to be Punk and Rollins to the audience right away, right, by him doing that thing outside that cage, and now they're clamoring for it like it's their idea. It's a brilliant WWE strategy for his first feud.
Marketing, pal. Marketing. All right.
The wrestling business, after all.
Business, yes. What was the last words from Punk last week? I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to make money.
There we go.
We said last week. And then cheap plug this past Sunday. I'm on Busted Open now on our 7th day every Sunday morning. Myself and Jonathan Hood. Just do your job and go home. Make your money and just go home. Nice. Don't engage in the extracurriculars. Just go home. You got the private bus, you got the private plane, you got the money. Go home. All right, so we get Seth Rollins in action. The advertised match has been advertised for the week. Him defending his world title against main event Jey Uso. It's been 15 years that Jey Uso has been in the company, I believe, on the roster, at least the main roster. 14 years ago to the day, I believe. Again, Michael Cole, shout out to the stats of the tragic passing of Umaga, who was the uncle of Jey Uso. So a lot here. Big fight feel. We don't often get the world title defended on Monday Night Raw, so this is it's got the feel that definitely gave it time. This match started, I believe, about 10:30 Eastern time. So Jey Uso versus Seth Rollins. Just ton of match here. I'm not going to go move by move, blow by blow. But I think by the time they built this thing, by the time they got it, Jimmy, there was the false finish of the crowd. They had the crowd. People thought that Jey Uso had done it.
It's like you're reading my notes, man.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, I'll let you get to your notes. Ultimately, Rollins is going to hit the curb stomp. He's going to get the win. Let's stop there. There's a little bit of extracurricular that happens after that, but let's stop there. Let's just talk about Seth Rollins and Jey Uso in that match.
But it was again, it was one hell of a match, and I felt like at the beginning, the crowd was a little, both guys were getting cheered pretty much, and it was a little bit divided. Not really booing Seth, but at the same time, like you said, a couple of CM Punk chants and that sort of thing. It almost felt like the crowd didn't believe that there was an opportunity for the title to change hands tonight, but they were kind of enjoying the match. They're going, yeah, that was cool. But then this is the magic sometimes that happens in pro. They got them to bite a couple of times on a couple of really good false finishes. And I have them written down, and I could name them off, but if you haven't seen it, go out and check it out, because there were two times in that match where the audience, you got that huge, oh, when Seth barely kicked out before the 3. And that's what you want to hear. And that's what you want to get. You want to go from that, you know what's going to happen. They're going to have a pretty good match, but there's no way they're going to win, to having the audience going, oh, I thought that was it.
Matt, your thoughts on the match and the Uso story, the Jey Uso story. The Usos, twin brothers, tag team for the last, decade and a half, and they split them off, put them on separate brands. Have they managed to truly make Jey Uso a bona fide single star? That is not something you often see when you have twins who just make their living as being twins in a tag team. But has Jey Uso, even in not winning this title tonight, has he elevated himself as truly being a main event caliber talent for them?
Well, they've taken their lessons from other tag teams that have split and haven't been successful. They haven't repeated any of those pitfalls. As far as the Usos go, man, my son and I, who's now 21, used to watch him when he was 10 on Saturday Morning Slam. They were on Saturday Morning Slam every week, which was, this PG-rated show where you didn't really get the top guys, but you got the Usos. Now, Jey Uso, to me, is like the Scottie Pippen of the WWE. Like, at first, you didn't really believe. You were like, is he just there because the spot? Like, he's good, but is he in that spot because of, that guy there? And slowly but surely, man, you realize he gets better and he wins you over, and then you realize, oh, he was this good the whole time. I was just dumb. Like Jey keeps stepping up and goes above and beyond what I thought he would do. For sure. He is great. And as far as that finish goes, for 1 second, I believed. That second almost pinfall, I believed. Like, I'm watching wrestling as cynically as I can, just sitting there going, here we go, seeing it. I'm always like that. And for 1 second, I went, ooh, so great job.
Congrats to you, Matt. I don't think we've ever had a mention of Saturday Morning Slam on this podcast. So the fact that you got that in there, you made Wrestling Inc. history. Thank you. All right, let's talk about what happened after the match. So Seth Rollins wins after a hard-fought match between these two baby faces. Drew McIntyre comes out of nowhere and just Claymore kicks Jey Uso. He knocks out Seth Rollins, blasts Uso through the table. So just as we started with the heel Drew McIntyre pissed off, we end with the heel Drew McIntyre pissed off. And so to the point that one of you made, I forget which one of you was, as we have Punk coming back to Raw next Monday, there are some options. I mean, just right now, Drew McIntyre is saying this is my damn show, and I'm mad. I'm mad at everybody, and Punk's not absolved from this list. Jimmy, your thoughts on the post match attack from Drew and just where we're headed at this point?
No, it from a story standpoint, it makes sense because Drew has an issue with the bloodline, and of course, Jay having his connection with the bloodline, and has a past with Drew in a negative capacity for Drew, at least, anyways. It makes sense. And if, let's say, Punk does come back, and signs with Raw, there's still a story there for him and Drew, but there's still a story between Drew and the bloodline. So it's almost like he may want to go after the bloodline more than he wants to go after CM Punk. Mm-hmm. Or if you get where I'm going with this, it's kind of like trying to, pull at strings here, but at the same time, there are stories on both sides, so I could see him going to both shows.
Yeah. Matt, where's your interest at with this? Where do you gauge what's Drew doing next?
Man, I'll tell you, when you look at Triple H and what he's done with WWE, people talk about the angles. It's not really the angles. This dude has developed these deep characters. And that way, anything that's a little bit of an angle, you appreciate even more because you care about the characters. Look at the Drew McIntyre character. Matter of fact, look at the Jey Uso character, the Sami Zayn character. There's tons and tons of subtext there. So with Drew, you see he's angry. And I'm not sure he's going to be going after the bloodline. I think he's angry at the world. And he's angry. He seems to be angry, more angry at people like Sami Zayn, who are calling him out for being such a baby, as opposed to mad at the actual issue. He's mad at Seth Rollins for being in his spot, not so much, Roman Reigns for costing him, the title. Drew, man, what they're doing with Drew is indicative of everything they're doing to everybody. I don't know where they're going. It could definitely be Punk. But I'm looking forward to it, and it's compelling, and it's one of the more interesting character turns we've seen in the last few years.
For sure.
Because he's pulling it off. I'm sorry, not just because it's good. Drew is killing it in that role. It's not just being given. You could give that to a bunch of guys and say, okay, you're turning. He's like, all right, but Drew is just killing it, man.
Matt, sorry to cut you off. Matt, I completely agree with you because he makes it believable. He makes you believe exactly what he's saying, and you're going, boy, that doesn't sound storyline to me.
Yeah. I mean, Drew, the documentary is going to be great one day for the WWE Network, for Peacock, whatever it's on. I mean, you look at a guy, you go back and look at him in like 2009, and just the physical difference of what he looked like. And, he was dubbed the chosen one by Vince. Good God, what a pressure that is to then have that labeled, and that did not pan out. Goes into 3s and 3MB with Jinder and Heath, and he leaves. And much like Cody did, Drew left and went out and bet on himself, and in some ways reinvented himself a little bit, changed the look. Obviously, worked a lot of different promotions, and then he's come back and he's better than he's better than ever at the oldest age that he's been at his career, but he's better than ever. He's got more. It feels like he's got more youth than ever in him, not from just a physical standpoint, but just from an energy standpoint of like what he's doing, as Matt just highlighted, like what the depth of his character and where he's at now. So, Drew McIntyre.
So much more credible than this sword waving champion,
Yeah.
Like so much more genuine than he's a prince with a sword. Like it just seems this is the role he's been waiting to play his whole career.
Agreed. So that was Monday Night Raw tonight. Again, very wrestling heavy, as Matt noted earlier. It certainly felt like that they might have been down to some bodies. I don't know what the status was, but obviously Rhea's not there, Finn's not there. They did not choose to use Punk tonight. If there's anybody else notably that really wasn't there, but I mean, they definitely got the most out of what they did put out there in the ring tonight, from a time standpoint, from a story standpoint. So we head now to SmackDown this Friday. Of course, CM Punk advertised for that, and then he's advertised for Raw next week in Cleveland, which we will have podcasts here on Wrestling Inc. of all of that. Final thoughts. Give me your plugs. Put yourselves over. Matt, as the guest, you go first. Final thoughts on tonight's Raw, and how can people get more of you?
Nothing to plug right now, except I'm coming out with some new music soon. At Matt Kuhn Music on Twitter. Want to thank you guys for having me on. Sorry for talking so much. I just love to talk wrestling. Raw was very good. The 3-hour Raw is never going away. We have to accept it, and that just makes it tough, no matter how good it is. If this is a
Hey!
2 hour
Don't say that. The Raw's probably going to be in a new place, not USA. It's probably going to be a new place starting next year. Let's all keep some hope that they can somehow get it to 2 hours. Keep some hope.
Yeah,
Come on.
and WWE is going to go, hey, let's just cut our income in 2/3. Let's go ahead and do that. You know, it's, but I'm sorry. Like I've come to terms with it. It's acceptance of because it's just as good as it was. It's still 3 hours. So I'm like, this has been a great first hour and a half. This and about 15 minutes later, I'm like, oh my God, there's an hour and 15 minutes left. You know, good show, but it's still 3 hours.
Yeah. New music. That's exciting. Is it anything wrestling related, or is it totally separate?
Not wrestling related. I did the wrestling thing for a while. You know, if I did the first FTR theme on AEW, and if you watch Impact, I did Deonna Purrazzo's theme and Steve Macklin's theme and a lot of podcast themes. But this is the first music I'm just making for myself, like art. You know what I'm saying? Like just me. So
Awesome.
Cool.
I've been working on it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's gonna be out. You can follow me on Twitter to find out more.
Well, good on you. Make that as music. That's awesome. Matt Kuhn music. So that's exciting to do that. The resume with the wrestling stuff, but branching out on your own stuff for your own creative purposes. Good on you, Jimmy. Final thoughts then on Raw, and how can the people get more of Jimmy Korderas?
No, I enjoyed Raw. Like you guys said, it was very wrestling heavy. And please, Matt, do not apologize. You were wonderful tonight. Love listening to your takes. It was
a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, pleasure to see you again too. Again, I enjoyed it. It made me interested in wanting to see what happens next in certain situations, and that's the goal, right? You want people to want to come back, and they got me wanting to come back to see what happens. And as far as where you can find me here on Monday nights with you, Justin, and usually Jack Farmer, which Triple J. But good to have Matt on tonight with us, and thank him for joining us. Wednesday nights after Dynamite, you can catch me here as well with you, Justin, and usually it's Issa. The Riffing It Up podcast with my good brother in stripes, Brian Hebner, and I drops usually every Wednesday. And thank you, JR, for keeping the glue together for that podcast. I have to give him his shout out as well. We had Hermie Sadler on last week. This week, Elijah Burke is scheduled to be our guest. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully, he makes it on. And as always on my anti-social media platforms from Monday to Friday, you can catch me doing my Ref and Rant. It's only a minute long. They're little critiques that, again, not to tear down, but to help tighten screws that I think need to be tightened. That's all. And have a little fun with it as well.
With your cup of coffee.
With my cup. Yeah, I got to have a cup of coffee for sure.
With your cup of coffee. Very good. Yeah, I think for this time of year is always tricky with WWE in December. It's just always it can be an odd time of year. But I do feel like they're putting some good foots forward of trying to keep you engaged again when they're not doing a December PLE, they're not doing a New Year's Day PLE. So in terms of that, we have a while to go until it's a gimmick show, which is Rumble. So I feel like they at least are trying to give us some stories till then, and there's a lot of course things to talk about. So I'm still intrigued. It is 3 hours, it is long, but I think they're trying to make the most of it and make it as watchable as possible. At Jessica LaBar across all the socials. Back Wednesday night here with Issa and Jimmy after Dynamite. Every Friday morning spar with LaBar, with myself, Dave LaGreca, and Thunder Rosa on Busted Open. And then you get me for 3 whole hours on Sundays. Now Busted Open is 24/7, 7 days a week, 7 days. The 7th day, the new day, now on Sunday. Myself and Jonathan Hood on Sunday morning. So 3 hours of live mic, your calls, all the talk. It is a fun way to start your Sunday. So check it out there. If you can listen live, check out the podcast, check out the show on demand via the Sirius XM app.
Yeah, really quick here, Justin. Thanks for having me wake up early on my Sundays now.
Hey, if I got to set an alarm now on Sunday, you're setting an alarm. All right.
There we go.
No, I appreciate you listening. Thanks everybody for the support for all the stuff with SiriusXM. Thanks for everybody the support here on the Wrestling Podcast. Of course, saw a lot of our normal suspects in the chat tonight. We appreciate you. If you're listening to the show on demand, or if you're listening, if you're on YouTube on demand, if you've got the podcast to one of the audio feeds, appreciate it. Leave a review, leave a comment, tell a friend, do any of those things. That helps the show grow, helps us all keep doing this thing that we love to do, which is to talk wrestling. Have a good night. We'll be back. There'll be a podcast tomorrow night, I believe, after NXT here on Wrestling Inc. Be good. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Jimmy.